disappeared. And I was involved in the restructure. I learned all the financial numbers. And through that process, I knew it was only time before this thing would catch up. They were able to just barely squeak by, and this was going to come back. And some friends of mine were starting this thing called New California. And New California is a constitutional effort to have the state divided into a more urban to a more suburban rural, and the population to be about 50-50. This started about 2015, and I didn't believe it, every wine in its time. In 2018, late 2018, I called them up and said, this is going to happen. And the first one, when? I said, it's hard to say, but it's probably about 2021. And I got involved in it, and New California has begun to build literally a shadow government. They've worked on a constitution, they've worked on how to train people to be assemblymen and senators. But the biggest issue is that California, the way it's structured, it is so leveraged to the Silicon Valley capital gains, cryptocurrency, Wall Street, financial, that according to the Legislative Analyst Office, now this is the State Nonpartisan Advisory Committee, these are very sophisticated people, they estimate that California is now coming into a period with at least a $25 billion annual deficit. Now, this is a $220 billion budget. Oh, that's about $1 out of $8. But if there's a recession or inflation is above 2%, you could have a $100 billion swing in tax revenue. I mean, this isn't such an existential problem.
Well, we're seeing the interest rate already.
Right, well, it's a little over 2%, right?
Yeah.
I mean, go look. I mean, I think mortgages are almost 8%.
Yeah.
So I mean, this already started happening in March. Tax collection for the state of California, with 2.2 million more jobs, and we're coming out of the COVID. 2.2 million more jobs. Tax collection is going down. In economics, Mike, that's impossible.
Yeah, it doesn't pencil out for long.
Well, and now we're coming into and the tax revenue in the month of January, it was $34 billion a year ago. In January, it was $19 billion. That's over 40%.
So how does New California solve this?
Well, I think the state, old California is built on a business model where 0.5% of the population pays 40% of the taxes. And this is because of capital gains, cryptocurrency, new issues, all that kind of financial stuff, international trade, buyouts, acquisitions. If that goes away, that 40 miles along the coast isn't gonna, that's just gonna be like holding an anvil, in a boat. So it's the interior part of California that should come back, should drive the next economic boom. But the state has only been spending money in the urban core where their voter base is, where the business base was, and they've drastically underinvested in infrastructure or not invested, whichever you'd like to say. And so New California, because we're what's called fresh start, we would have the ability, to build that infrastructure, and we would build it, and I know some people don't like this, but build it in a public-private partnership where we wouldn't risk the tax, we wouldn't risk the taxpayers. We would actually force, Wall Street to be an investment partner with us. We'd provide the structure, the approvals, the management of the project, and we would build the 6 dams, and we would build about 37 natural gas power plants. Here in Redding, you have something really unique that nobody has in the country. You have what's called Northern California Power Association, and the Reading Electric Utility. All around us, you see people paying PG&E rates for business of around 30 cents a kilowatt hour. That compares to 10 cents in Texas. That's where our jobs are going because of that. Here, you can get it as low as 7 and 8 cents a kilowatt hour. So if you're going to build manufacturing in America and you're going to bring these $45 an hour jobs, and the new factories won't be miles long like China with little hands assembling. These will be people that go to Shasta College. They got a 2-year degree. They know enough math, but they have hand skills. Nobody appreciates that what America doesn't have right now is hand skills. When I went to school, you had to take shop or you had to take drafting, and even home economics. I know people knock that, but the simple fact that you have to know how to do things in your life, how to balance a checkbook, those things are very applicable if you're going to have manufacturing, because people have to have enough education to work with expensive, sophisticated machines, but they got to have the common sense to not only use the machine, but to use it effectively. So I think you're just what's the hard times in Silicon Valley are the klaxon horn that Shasta is probably the next place for a real economic boom.
So what have you been doing the last 3 years that you've been in Reading?
Well, I still, before COVID, I was teaching a lot of graduate school classes. I teach, I've taught at USC, Caltech, most of the universities in Southern California. But because of COVID, everything has been sort of Zoom, and it slowed down clearly. But I still lecture to classes in China. I have a very well known for my expertise in what's called comparable economics. And so I teach classes regularly by what's called VUV. That's like our Zoom for China. Mm-hmm. So, you do what you do, right?
Yeah, okay.
And I quite frankly, if you've got an internet connection and you're, in modern business, you pretty much can be anywhere you want to be. And more importantly, if you have an environment that you like and you have an internet connection, that's a pretty satisfying event.
Good. Anything else you want to say?
I just want to say how I'm just so thankful I moved back up here. I can't tell you, we never thought it would happen. It kind of was a crisis, and we moved here. My mother was in Mercy Hospital for 8 days in critical care. This is a woman in almost 90 years old. She just turned 90. But the quality of the hospital, the quality of the care, the quality of the neighbors and the support, it's just so fortunate to have that. This is really what makes Shasta County and Queen of the North.
Awesome, thank you.